we continue to look at the divorce case of Dr. and Mrs. Sinclair. Submissions on behalf of the claimant. So these are the submissions now from Gordon Steer, the attorney for Mrs. Sinclair. Mr. Steer submits that the claimant's qualification cannot be viewed in a vacuum. Her age, ailment, and absence from work for over 20 years has put her at an extreme disadvantage in seeking employment, which can be appreciated from her failed attempts thus far. Relying on the case of Susan Anne Marie Husam versus Quentin Chin Chung Husam, he submits that the court should take into consideration not only the fact that she has been unemployed for over 20 years, but that she is quickly approaching the age of retirement and has had difficulties seeking employment. He also submits that the offer of $150,000 per month by the defendant with no specific period is woefully inadequate. He is of the view that the defendant has understated his income and overstated his expenses. But in any event, it is clear that he is able to provide sufficient maintenance for the claimant, as he is clearly a man of means. So here you see the lawyer of Dr. Sinclair's once loving wife is saying that Dr. Sinclair is not presenting proper evidence about the amount of money he has, that he is hiding money and overstating his expenses in order to try to avoid the big payout that she wants him to pay her after she leaves him. So this is the kind of thing that happens in a divorce. You see how ruthless a divorce can be, how brutal it can be. We continue. Counsel raises the point that the defendant even admitted on cross-examination, that's Dr. Sinclair, even admitted on cross-examination that he failed to disclose bank account in which his salary is deposited. He also points out that the defendant admitted that after paying his itemized expenses, his excess of net income was just about $1 million. He adds that this was solely from his income from Times Imaging Center Limited and does not include his earnings otherwise. Counsel also submits that the court should take account of the defendant's evidence that though he suffers from vertigo due to the lesion on his brain stem, it is not life-threatening, and that he goes to work most days. He also submits that the claimant, Mrs. Sinclair, has given evidence of grave medical and optical concern and have gone untreated due to financial inability. So Mrs. Sinclair's lawyer is saying, disregard Dr. Sinclair's medical problems. But it is Mrs. Sinclair's medical problem that you should take seriously. Continue. The claimant has only been able to afford, so that the claimant, Mrs. Sinclair, has only been able to afford what she can presently through the health insurance policy that she receives from the defendant, which is a major medical policy covering a large portion of her expenses so far. He makes the point that as the claimant, at the claimant's current age, at Mrs. Sinclair's current age, it is unlikely that she will be able to increase her earning capacity more than her current status, even though she has made considerable effort thus far. So he says she has made considerable effort to find employment. He states that the claimant cannot meet her medical expenses on her own without the assistance of the defendant, Dr. Sinclair, who can provide the maintenance as sought by Mrs. Sinclair. So Mrs. Sinclair's lawyer is insisting that Dr. Sinclair has the money to support her and is hiding some of it. So basically, Mrs. Sinclair's lawyer is searching Dr. Sinclair's pocket figuratively to find all the money that he has. He submits that the court ought to grant Mrs. Sinclair maintenance at a reasonable sum in light of the lifestyle she has now become accustomed, her debt and medical conditions, whether her periodic payments or lump sum, as the court, whether by periodic payment or lump sum, as the court deems fit. So you see this part here. In light of the lifestyle she has now become accustomed to. Well, we will read the submission on behalf of the defendant. That will be Dr. Sinclair's attorney's submission in our next video.